This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. Thank you for listening. Got a lot to get to today, previewing another big recruiting weekend for SMU football. The Pony Express weekend is here, so be sure to subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for just $1. That gets you 2 months when you use the code SMU1. That's SMU, the number 1, to get 2 months of reading, commenting on the boards, all those things for just $1. This is that perfect time to get it as Rhett Lashley and his staff get ready to really roll in the 2025 recruiting class, which already ranks in the top 25. Before we go any further, do want to remind you guys, we are presented by our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. Be sure to reach out to David Henry and his entire team so that they can help you plan the perfect SMU football trip, SMU basketball trip, or business trip, family trip, trip with friends, golf trip, tropical trip, wherever you want to take your trip. Use statusjet.com. They can get you into those really difficult to get to places because they have a network of private jets that you would expect them to with a private jet charter company. Whatever your needs are, they can help you get it through their contacts. And that's why you use the code PonyUpACC to get a discount on a round trip flight with our friends at StatusJet. So reach out to David Henry and his team. Go to statusjet.com for more information, and they'll get you hooked up on a round trip flight with that discount. Perfect time to do it with summer upon us. SMU football is ready for a big recruiting weekend, and this is quite frankly the biggest recruiting weekend I've covered. And it's the biggest recruiting weekend that SMU has had since the death penalty and the Pony Express days. The amount of talent that's set to hit campus and the amount of prospects that are visiting SMU is pretty staggering if you look at it on paper. And so kudos to Rhett Lashley and his staff. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, kind of looking ahead to this weekend. But I can finally share with you the list that SMU is going to have on campus this weekend. And we are watching for a surprise, maybe two. You never know what you can find. But when it comes to these big weekends, but SMU is bringing in multiple top 100 prospects, and that's just on the On3 industry ranking. SMU also bringing in multiple On 300 prospects, so prospects we feel like are among the nation's best here at On3. But the headliners, led by Keelan Russell, the 4-star quarterback commitment for SMU. He's going to be back on campus. He's fresh off yet another state championship. He's got Alabama, Florida, Ole Miss, Oregon, and others after him. So there's certainly a need for SMU to have a big weekend with him on campus, hoping to get him solidified if they can, or at least very much in good position ahead of some of these other official visits he has on deck. But make no mistake about it, SMU's also swinging for some other big fish in the sea as they welcome Lamont Rogers. He's a new addition to this bunch of prospects that are headed to campus, and he's one of the top offensive linemen in the entire country, a top 100 overall prospect. He's really one of those top guys that you talk about at the offensive tackle position. And you see there, he's got kind of a really interesting recruitment there. You see LSU at the top on the On3 RPM. You see Oklahoma hanging around, Texas, and now SMU. And I think for me, Lamont Rogers might be one of the most intriguing recruitments this recruiting cycle, because you do have somebody who has really been particular about the visits he's taken. He's got official visits lined up to Oklahoma, Texas. I believe he's got Texas A&M, Missouri. And it wouldn't shock me if we saw another official visit pop up here and there for Lamont Rogers. And he was at one point a guy that a lot of people considered a heavy LSU lean, but he didn't pop up on campus from what we understand this spring. And Oklahoma, Texas have really done a nice job turning at least the tide in that recruitment their way. SMU though snuck in with an unofficial visit during spring practice, got him on campus, and now they're getting him back for an official visit. I'm intrigued to see where this one goes. I wouldn't sit here and tell you that SMU is going to land him by any means, but he is somebody that now taking a visit, an official visit, really stands out to me as somebody you've got to watch SMU for, at least as a sleeper pick in that recruitment. But a couple of familiar faces for SMU that they're going to have on campus are Smith Orogbo, who, if you follow recruiting rankings, I mean, On3 has him. If that rankings ended today, he would land as a 5-star. He is a top 30 overall prospect. He's the third best edge in the country. And we know after this year, really SMU will lose Jafar Harvey. They will have an incredibly veteran bunch of edge players on the roster for the 2025 season if nobody departs early and things like that, which makes it plenty paramount that they land an edge prospect. And they've got a couple that they're after in particular, but Smith Orogbo, he's been to Texas, he's been to Oklahoma, he's been to USC, he's been to Arizona, he's been to Washington. He'll head to Missouri that last weekend of May, first weekend of June, Texas Tech June 7th, Kansas June 12th, Texas for his official visits June 14th, Oklahoma June 21st. He is one of the probably best guys in the class in terms of high motor ability, just what he's been able to do from a production standpoint as well. And then you add in his size. That's why we love him at On3. He was able to really be productive this year, over 100 tackles, 9 sacks as a junior, and he had plenty of tackles for loss as well. But that's what you're looking at when you look at these high-profile players is production, motor, and speed to get it all done. And Smith Orogbo certainly has that. And then if you're looking for SMU to retool the running back room that they've got, and they certainly need somebody to come in and be an instant impact type of player, I mean, Michael Turner is a good bet right now. Nation's number 3 running back in the On3 rankings. I believe he's the second highest rated prospect that's coming to campus for our On3 rankings. The 51st overall prospect in the country. Really talented back. SMU is a heavy favorite on the On3 RPM. If they can get Xavier Johnson, his teammate, who's also coming in this weekend, on board, that would go a long way to helping with Michael Turner. And I think Xavier Johnson has quickly rose from good guy that SMU was on and after to one of the top overall prospects at the wide receiver position on their board. I mean, I'm hearing that things are at least trending in the right way there, and we'll see if he jumps on board after this weekend. And if he does, then you have to think Michael Turner, you know, after visiting a half dozen times this spring and this year, maybe SMU gets him on board as well in what would kind of be a surprise in terms of timing. He does have some other visits ahead, but those are the top 100 guys that are coming to SMU this weekend. It's a really impressive bunch. The wide receiver position, if they can come away with all the guys that are expected in this weekend alone, which are Dalen Singleton, the SMU commit, Jalen Cooper out of Steele High School, and then Bryson Jones out of Frisco Lone Star, and then they can land Xavier Johnson. In a year when you lose 6 receivers, if you include Brashard Smith in that group, you're looking at restocking the room very, very well. And so the pressure is kind of on Rob Likens this cycle in the high school ranks. It's kind of been it really has been one where, you know, transfer portal has been critical. They've had to upgrade the position. He's brought in some good players. They haven't necessarily hit on that star out of the portal yet, which they'd like to obviously see a Jordan Hudson or a Jake Bailey or somebody else really emerge as that guy this year at the wide receiver position. But in terms of the high school ranks, if they can hit on, I mean, they had Taz Williams and Dalen McCutcheon on campus last week, and if they can get a Taz Williams on board and then come away with this bunch at receiver, that would be really impressive. And you're then looking at, I think all of them outside of Xavier Johnson would be 4-star prospects. And I almost look at Xavier Johnson as somebody that could end up being the highest ranked out of them, average 24 yards a catch this season and has throughout his career, I believe. Could be wrong on that, but they are continuing to recruit that receiver position hard. They know they've got to hit on it at a pretty heavy clip. SMU will welcome back Javion Holiday, the Duncanville cornerback. They will welcome back Tyron Polley, the Duncanville safety, Elijah Pratt, who's at IMG Academy, safety commitment, and then Nathan Tillman, his former teammate at Arlington Mansfield Timberview. He'll be on campus as well. I think for me, getting those guys back on campus, they're all really solid in their commitments. And I feel like SMU will be really rebuilt in that safety room by the time those guys are called upon to have a big role in this defense. And they're all really different, but really productive. And SMU's bringing them in for this weekend to hopefully solidify their commitments and also get them to a point where they're some of SMU's biggest advocates on the defensive side of the ball. Look, we've gone on about this Pony Express weekend a little bit, and I'll be remiss if I didn't say that you can find the entire list with all the intel and information at ontheponyexpress.com. We also are going to drop a insider recruiting podcast on Thursday at some point, maybe Friday morning if you're listening to this. But I'm recording on Thursday around lunchtime. And so we'll talk more in depth about each prospect. I'll kind of go quick hit on that recruiting insider podcast for our subscribers only. But we've gone 12 minutes and roughly 15 seconds without talking about SMU's newest commitment, who jumped on board late night Wednesday. I was actually getting ready to shut it down for the night. I was doing some laundry for the family, and Jacob Maiava's Twitter account went off, and I put him on alerts this weekend because he told me he was committing to SMU after his official visit. He was going to do it this weekend after his spring game, but he said, why wait? And so that is what he did. He committed to Garen Justice. This is a player that will not check the box in terms of height. He absolutely will check the box, though, in terms of prototypical, or I shouldn't say prototypical, but kind of a squatty center. Think not as big as Ja'Kai Clark, but in a way like a Branson Hickman and kind of that low center of gravity wrestler type. But he adds that Polynesian flavor to this roster that it hasn't seen in a minute now, since the June Jones days. I believe. I think they had a Poly or two, but they certainly recruited him. And then SMU gets a guy who, listen to this quote. He said, I feel like I have the talent to be in the first 5. I have the dog mindset of where, like, if a different jersey is lined up across with me, my mindset is to kill them, to put them in the dirt and to just kill them. It's the mindset that I have. My footwork and everything else is good. I think that's what I can bring to the table and to add on to SMU's program. He's excited about it. He is, again, a player that will open doors for SMU in terms of other prospects jumping on board from the Polynesian community. I think once you get one, that can open the door to more. And SMU did have, another Polynesian on campus over the weekend with Abel Hopipi. I need to get the pronunciation right on that, but apologies there, from Hawaii. And SMU will be bringing another offensive lineman that they now lead on the on-3 RPM for in this weekend in Drew Hill from Corona Centennial, California. Drew Hill is somebody that Steve Wiltfong just put an on-3 RPM pick for in for, and we'll talk about Steve Wiltfong a little bit more here. But Drew is another Polynesian offensive lineman who has got a chance to, be a pretty good player for SMU. I mean, he's got some really high profile offers under his belt. He does have Utah. He's got Stanford. He's going to take an official visit to Duke, I believe, at some point, and then he has some other high-profile programs after him. So this is a key battle for SMU, but they sit in a good spot from what it seems like going into the weekend. So we'll keep an eye on there. But again, it just opens the door if they got Jacob Miava on board. Drew Hill's another one that we're keeping a close eye on here as the weekend begins, and Darren Justice continuing to do a really good job recruiting that position overall, in my opinion, in terms of finding players that out of the high school ranks have projectable traits to then take them and build them into a quality offensive lineman. I think the biggest thing with the ACC is opening the doors for some of these players that SMU would have gotten close on. In some cases, they might not even have visited, but now they are visiting and they're giving SMU that look, and could very well pay off with another commitment for SMU when it comes to the offensive line. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Jacob Miava committed over the weekend. Poor guy just completely got passed over with the buzz around the Pony Express weekend. And let's talk about that in particular for just one moment here, as SMU is welcoming a group that is probably, I say probably, it's the best that I've seen since I've been covering the program coming into visit this weekend. You have all these high profile players, but you also have a lot of top targets. You have your commitments there to recruit for you when it comes to this weekend. I'll flash the visitor list back up on the site here if you're watching on our YouTube channel. So appreciate all you guys who have subscribed to the YouTube channel as always. And you get these guys on campus, 24 of them, and mostly from the state of Texas. Some guys from out of the state, some guys from out of the area. I think for me, if they can come away with, 8 out of this group as a whole, that would be a pretty large success. I think 10 would be knocking it out of the park. I just think when you look at some of the guys, the numbers will work themselves out on some of them. You have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think even 7 offensive linemen coming in. I don't think there's any way they take 7 offensive linemen from this weekend. So that kind of eliminates almost a third of them right off the jump. You'd love to see them land a couple of the high-profile guys. You'd love to see them land a guy like Caleb Burns or Keandre Johnson, Zay Gentry, kind of shift the momentum that Missouri had built over the course of the spring there, land a high-profile wide receiver. So I think 8 from this weekend would be really, really good in terms of an accomplishment. But if you don't subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com, I encourage you to. And part of the reason why is because of our national team as well. You can enjoy the message board with tons of SMU fans. You can follow all of our content, myself, Kevin Lonnquist, Jordan Hoffnitz. We're adding to the staff as well next month. But when it comes to some of the best recruiting insiders to ever grace this industry, Chad Simmons, Steve Wiltfong are on our team at On3, and they do a tremendous job covering it from the national angle. Been watching too many hockey games, almost said national anthem. And SMU is now a part of the Power Conference group of programs, and they're getting more and more attention from these national guys. Chad Simmons have been stopping by a lot during the spring with intel around Michael Turner and some of these other players from the Under Armour Dallas event. Well, Steve Wiltfong came over in April, right around when my son Jack was born, actually, and it was a really big deal for On3 to get him over to our team. And he talked with Rhett Lashley, had an exclusive interview with him on Thursday. It's on our website. He also touched on all the things that SMU has going for itself this weekend in his big national piece when it came to the big recruiting weekends that you look at across the country in terms of who has the top prospects coming in. SMU is among those highlighted. Talked about him on our National On 3 YouTube channel. But back to his conversation with Rhett Lashley, it was a really interesting story. Back in 2009-2010, Rhett Lashley was a graduate assistant at Auburn. And this was around the time when programs started doing these massive recruiting weekends for official visitors. And Auburn started Big Cat Weekend. And as somebody who grew up in SEC country and somebody who really grew up in the industry as well, following the SEC, Big Cat Weekend has always been one of the most coveted invites in the country. And it started at Auburn. It was more of a fun weekend with prospects that had been there a lot, and they would come to Auburn and hang out. And, everybody always jokes about Pat Dye's hunting camp or whatever with Auburn, but Big Cat Weekend was kind of expected to be fireworks for the program. And a lot of the times that was when Auburn was rolling in recruiting. And so now we've seen other programs, spin their own versions of it. And SMU is having the Pony Express weekend. And so Rhett Lashley talked with Steve Wiltfong about, you can't talk about specific prospects, but just about how SMU is able to recruit a different caliber of player now that they're in the ACC, being in Dallas, having won the AAC, the new facility, and all that timing up. SMU's capitalizing on the momentum, is what he said. And quote, "There's no reason we can't compete for ACC championships and the college football playoff if the right guys come here. We'll keep in Keelan Russell, keeping Dalen Singleton, keeping the group they have, while adding players like Michael Turner, Drew Hill, Xavier Johnson, and maybe a few of these high-profile guys. This is how you compete for championships." And SMU's going to be active in the transfer portal, but as they get into this high school recruiting emphasis that they're going on about lately, these are the type of weekends that you have to knock out of the park. And Rhett Lashley didn't shy away from it. He said, all these guys coming in here at the same time, again, no specifics, is a big deal. DFW turns out more D1 players than anybody. And if not, it's 2 or 3 every year. So what happens if the best players decide to stay in Dallas? We win championships. That's the sell now that we're in a power conference and competing at the highest level, being on the biggest stages nationally and stay at SMU. How do we get guys to stay together? Weekends like this. So I can tell you, it is so exciting to be on the site right now. If you don't subscribe, I encourage you to subscribe and really just join in on the fun that SMU has going on with us at ontheponyexpress.com. It's just $1 for your first 2 months using code SMU1. And it's a nice IPA at some places, or a couple drafts of your favorite domestic a month, or getting close to the price of a Starbucks. So 2 Starbucks a month. That's what it costs to be at ontheponyexpress.com. So try us out. And, if you don't like it, I'm going to hang out on the YouTube channel, but a lot of good information to come, and from people like Steve and Chad and myself and our entire team. It's a good time to be on board. Before we dive into what was a busy basketball week of recruiting, quick reminder, statusjet.com. Go over there and check out what they've got going on with all their different aircraft they can put you in. 866-738-8496. Use the code PonyUpACC with them and get a discount on a round trip flight. I can tell you guys, it's worth it when it comes to private jets when you're talking about that amount of money. So use the code, try them out. If you like them, then it works out and you can continue to use them and all those things. But they just really treat you with that attention to detail of all your needs and travel wishes that not everybody does. Even in that space. I mean, it's pretty wild to hear some of the stories that they've told me about customers calling them in a pinch at the last second and needing some help. So reach out to them at Status Jet and figure out how they can help you get from point A to point B with that level of luxury you'd expect from a program like, or from a company like Status Jet. Well, SMU basketball did have a big recruiting week. They hosted 3 of the top 100 prospects in the entire country. And we shared with you guys the scoop on those guys at ontheponyexpress.com. There are 2 others, but if you want to meet one of them right now, he just picked up an offer from Andy Enfield and his staff. BJ Davis Ray from Duncanville High School. He's originally from St. Louis. Top 70 overall prospect, number 14 overall shooting guard in the country. And he's really picking up a lot of recruiting steam overall. LSU offered, I think, 5 days ago. Arkansas has an offer out to him. Ole Miss has been pushing for him. And so SMU gets him on campus. And he's visited SMU multiple times under the prior staff, but they hadn't offered. And so now SMU makes a move and offers him. And they do so and host 3 top 100 prospects, which, again, they're hosted at ontheponyexpress.com, the other 2. They do that on the heels of hiring Jeremy Hart as their director of recruiting. He's a Dallas native. He's been involved in player development at multiple stops, including Kansas State with Jerome Tang and New Mexico State. And he comes in as a Dallas native, has worked with some of the top players around the area throughout his career. He has really, kind of built his career on development. But him being the director of recruiting now makes a lot of sense. He's got ties with these 3 guys, among others, in the local area. But now that SMU has offered BJ Davis Ray, it's a big offer to go out. I expect SMU to really turn up the heat there and make a move. And we'll see what happens with that recruitment as it unfolds. But that was just one offer that went out as he was on campus. And now it's live this weekend. So we'll be tracking where these guys go and kind of who SMU is watching this weekend. This is a incredible recruiting weekend to be on the site. I know I keep hammering it and things like that, but you have football hosting 24 official visitors. We're going to have so much intel on that throughout the weekend. And then you have basketball, the live period heating up. This is the time of year where it gets a little fun. So I would say jump on board with us and just give it a try. We're closing in on 900 overall subscribers on the site, which is an all-time high. I can tell you we've moved, and this isn't, we're not the smallest site on On3. So pretty cool for SMU to be moving up the ranks in terms of On3's sites. So be sure to try us out and see how you like it. It's a good time. But SMU extended another offer, and this one to a 5-star prospect, Braden Berries from California. So somebody that Andy Enfield's staff is familiar with when it comes to the recruiting landscape. And they dished out an offer to him, and now you can consider them in the mix for the combo guard from Riverside, California. He's the number 15 or the number 13 overall prospect in the country, number 2 combo guard. He got Nike EYBL top performers honors, was a standout at USA Basketball's junior mini camp a whole roughly 6 months ago. Kentucky's heavily recruiting him and keeping an eye on him for sure. So we are now thrown into the mix for the first big-time prospect when it comes to SMU basketball under Andy Enfield. So we'll see where they can take it from here when it comes to his recruitment. But Alabama, Texas, Texas A&M, they've all entered the mix for him, as well as some of the national powers. But his frame is what stands out. Long arms, his size. He's got big shoulders, so he could be somebody that develops even more physically. He can get the ball all to various spots on the floor as a facilitator. Solid athlete, has good feel for the court, smooth jump shot. And so this is a prospect that has a very high floor, according to Jamie Shaw, our senior national recruiting analyst at On3, who's also been dropping some intel on players like Chris Chenak, one of the best players in the country, Caden Edwards, who's off to a huge start this summer. This is another reason why you need to subscribe for the guys like Jamie Shaw, Joe Tipton on the national side of things, who really can bring the heat to our site. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. We will catch you guys next week reacting to what will be a crazy recruiting weekend for SMU. So be sure to subscribe. We appreciate all of you guys who have jumped on board with us already. We will catch you guys next week as we recap what will be another big weekend for the Mustangs in the recruiting world. So thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.